Welcome to Week in Horror.
You gotta be fucking kidding.
The only podcast that will feed your horror need.
The need to feed.
With JL.
Yeah, I'm a fucking masochist. I'll watch that shit.
Eugene.
Somebody has to be the sex symbol, I'm sorry.
Alex.
Shit, I just demonetize this forever.
And Johnny O.
How do you like that shit? Got halfway through the monologue before unmuting myself. Golly, it's one of them fucking days.
With industry guests.
Hi, this is Richard Oakes, Director of Host.
Hey, this is Adam Leader, Director of Host.
This is Matthew Mark Hunter.
I'm Don Anelli.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
And this is Week in Horror.
And you're listening to Week in Horror.
Welcome to prime time, bitch!
News, trivia, and more.
One by one, we will take you.
Join our live show Wednesdays at 7 Central, youtube.com/weekinhorror, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Week in Horror. Stay scared.
Welcome, horror fans. It's Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Time, and that means it's time for another episode of the Week in Horror podcast, the only podcast where everyone is a suspect. And if you're listening to us on your favorite podcast host, you can join us here for our live show on YouTube so you too can laugh and scream with us, flex your horror knowledge in the live chat, and maybe even win some trivia prizes. Covering select films released in horror history March 6th through. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm Alex, and with me tonight are Eugene and Jo.
What's up, everybody?
Hey, everyone.
What is happening, y'all? It's Wednesday. Man, that happened fast.
It came up on us quick this week all of a sudden. I was kind of like, I was even a day behind at one point. I remember I was talking to Johnny yesterday, and I was like, what are you doing? Because he goes live on Tuesdays. And I was like, what are you doing live? It's Monday. He's like, it's Tuesday, dude. And I'm like, oh, shit.
Fuck, it is.
I lost a day. Yeah. I tell you, it happens when I get into like a writing, because I screenwrite and do my own personal channel on YouTube beyond this. And when I was heavy into writing, because right now we have scripts in the works and we have all kinds of stuff going on and big news that we're eventually going to be able to reveal to all of our audience. And I was just in that zone. I was like in that writing zone where I'm focused, solely on that. And of course the stuff going on, people know about my dog Jingles and everything, and just dealing with that whole situation. So I was in it like once all the writing was done and I was like, oh, I could take a breather and relax. I realized I was not caught up with everybody else. I was like behind.
Well, wait a second. I can't relax because I'm 3 days behind.
The work just keeps piling up. But I think I'm good now. I should be good now. So I'm happy about that. Oh man. But yeah, this week it caught up quick. So, but I've been looking forward to this because last week we went through witchcraft. So, and
anything Alex, other than that is just a look up.
I knew eventually we were going to have to go through that episode, and I tried to put it off as long as I could. I was like, you know what? Let's just get through it. And then all of a sudden we got through it, and then we've got nothing but actually awesome movies to talk about for the rest of the season. So I'm really, really happy about that. So this one I've been really excited about, because we got a bunch of stuff that we got a couple of films that I'm really excited to talk about. One of which is a Nick Nemici film, which is one of my favorites of his, probably his best performance, in my opinion. But we got all kinds of stuff. But that was my week. My week was pretty much catching up with everybody else. What was y'all's week like?
Well, I mean, mine's not as exciting as Eugene's is, so I'll go first. I started a new job. It is a 9-to-5 job. In a position that is way above what I'm qualified for. So that's just been kind of crazy. Monday, we're back in the office, which is weird to say. So yeah, it's really just been kind of learning the ropes there, meeting the team, and it's in Capel, so it's a little bit of a drive from where I'm at. If there's any traffic at all, not too bad. If it's nothing crazy. New job stuff. Exciting for me only.
Well, that's good. Good. New work is good. New work, hey, it pays the bills.
Yeah,
it pays the bills until this can pay your bills.
Right, exactly. There's a number. There's a number that kind of has to meet in the middle there.
Once it passes that number, then
we can talk.
It'll be good.
But I know Eugene's been busy over there down in Texas making Hollywood dreams come true. And
I'm hoping
it's an exhausting business.
It really is.
It's so tiring being famous.
So much work, phone ringing all the time, and blah,
Statham.
So basically, we got the trailer done I directed an HBO pilot called Black Clown. I directed the first episode of it. And so we finally got the trailer set up for us. It's still not public yet. That's going to be on the producer's discretion, but I got a chance to see the cut of it, and the trailer looks really good. Obviously, I've seen cuts of the full episode and everything. So hopefully be able to maybe screen that trailer here on Week in Horror. That'd be awesome.
Sick.
On it. So just with that, and then just been working on doing some interview stuff and just some camera gigs here and there.
Fantastic. Look at us just working.
Busy AF.
All right. Well, so it's been kind of a quiet week. Last week, the new Texas Chainsaw Massacre released, and we chatted about that. And then, of course, but it's been quiet since then. There's stuff coming out soon that, obviously we're going to want to chat about, but this was a quiet week. So before we dive into tonight's selections, we're going to get into them quick. Let's say hi to whoever's in the chat. Let's see who has joined us tonight. I see Angel Rivera was in the house. Is in the house. It's interesting choices. Let's get into it. We will get into it big time. So Angel, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Mystique Tina Jones is in the house. Good to see you. Says, ooh, guess who gets to watch this week? Oh, I'm off sick for the week. Yay. See, that's awesome. Every cloud is a silver lining. We appreciate it. And we appreciate it, Mystique. Donnie Does That's in the house. Good to see you, Donnie Does That. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, wow, I've got this going. Bam. Let's get our patrons up there on the banner. There they are, all the amazing people that help us to make this show possible. So good to see you, Travis Brown. Thank you so much for being here. Sarcasm's in the house, one of our amazing patrons. Thank you so much, Sarcasm. Thank you so much for being here. Same with Charlie Welch. Good to see you, sir. And NANA, another one of our patrons. Thank you so much for being here. Love having you all in the chat. Jinju's in the house says, hello, everyone. Good to see you. There's Media Macabre, or a.k.a. Aaron Reese, a.k.a. the Trivia Killer, is in the house. Good to see you, sir.
So good at trivia, he earned himself a spot on the fucking show.
Yes, he did. So we had to give everybody else a chance to win.
Anybody had a chance.
Best solution ever. So and Aaron has been amazing on the show. He's been absolutely stellar because he is a wealth of horror knowledge. In addition to everything that we all know collectively. So the encyclopedic knowledge of the genre just got so much bigger. So good to see Aaron. Thank you so much for hanging out. And I see Sketch Crasher in the house. Good to see you, Sketch Crasher. Says hello all. Hello to you. Thank you so much for being here. And I knew I saw somebody else. Dave Cernick is in the house. Just subbed in. Thank you, Dave. We do appreciate it. Thank you so much. I hope you really, really enjoy the show. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Definitely down in the comments below. Cindy Johnson says, still working, but listening. The only way to work is to listen to us. And, of course, your other favorite channels. But we appreciate it, Cindy. Thank you so much, hon. Thank you. And
you know what's ironic about that, JL, is I used to work with you, so I got paid to listen to you.
This is true. And I got paid to listen to the other people that I listen to as well. So fantastic. The only way to listen to podcasts is while you're getting paid to do it. Right. All right, y'all. So good to see everybody. Thank you so much for everyone being here. But we got some good movies to talk about tonight. I know we're going to spend a decent amount of time on them. So what do y'all say?
I say just go ahead and dive in.
What are we starting off with? Eugene this week, I believe. What do we got first?
All right. So the first movie we have up is Nomads, which was released March 7th, 1986. Directed by John Mcterium and starring the lovely Bond himself, Pierce Brosnan, along with Leslie Ann Down and Anna Marie Monticelli. And basically what it is that you have a French anthropologist who ends up getting haunted by an evil spirit.
That's a nice way of putting that. That really, really is. That's a very nice way of putting that. Okay, so I got to say, Eliza, first and foremost, just talk about the film in general before we dive into it deeper like this. One, Pierce Brosnan, because when I was growing up, I first found Pierce Brosnan as Bond, as Goldeneye. It was like, Pierce Brosnan, and then from Goldeneye went on to do things like the Thomas Crown Affair, and pretty much there was this image of Pierce Brosnan, and you really kind of forget about him as like an actor because he's got this image that he portrays, this type of stereotypical character that he portrays. Usually debonair, very well dressed, very charismatic, ladies' man, prim and proper gentleman, that whole kind of thing. And then he's played a few bad guys here and there, but he never lost like the Bond essence. So this was years before Bond, and I was shocked because if I had seen this first, I would have thought that Pierce Brosnan was fucking French. It was it was impressive. Because typically you hear actors like Brad Pitt like in The Devil's Own was just awful in that film as far as like trying to convey Irish. I love Pitt, but his Irish is just not good. But Pierce Brosnan knocked it out of the park. I was like, that is a French anthropologist. I can believe that for hardcore. And also this being so Cindy Sue said you didn't see Remington Steele. So Remington Steele is where he got his start. And I didn't watch any of the Remington Steele until much, much, much later. But what is this? Cindy Sue's in the house as I stepped in just jail. It was thinking of Cindy, and I was so confused. The other Cindy. So I actually didn't check out Remington Steele, but I thought that Brosnan was fantastic in this. And it's not overblown. It's not like, a caricature of French people. I thought his role was fantastic, coupled with the fact that this was John McTiernan's first film. And people should recognize John McTiernan for who he is, like Die Hard, Predator,
yep.
The Thomas Crown Affair, a number of really, really stellar films. And this being his first one, not a lot of money. We all start, this is kind of the same, when we start like making, major movies like this, you don't really have a lot of money to play with. So you've got to know, you've got to know your shit. And I think this film alone was so strong in the fact, not only is it telling a very, very creepy story that's kind of based in actual mythology, which is interesting, but this movie really showcased McTiernan's technical mastery, his ability to utilize his equipment to the best possible effect within his budget. And I mean, I love the atmospheres of it. I mean, he managed to capture Southern California, and make it look harsh. And the kind of underbelly, the seedy underbelly of Southern California, which we all know is there, but it's typically not captured unless you're thinking things like Skid Row and stuff.
Right.
But I love the darkness because he associated an atmosphere with Southern California that's not typically there. And he managed to do it flawlessly. So, and seriously a gem if anybody in the audience has not seen this film.
It's pretty crazy. And yeah, like you said, there's some kind of background on it, these demonic Inuit trickster spirits that are taking human form, and you're kind of tracing down this backstory. That's really cool. But you use the one thing about this was the camera work alone in this. And it's something that I always like talking to Eugene about, because it's like, I've seen some of your work, and the way that you use a camera kind of reflects. See, I'm saying it backwards. The way that this movie uses a camera kind of reflects the kind of way that you like to use the camera as a character. We talked about this. Use the camera as a character. And in this, besides the what do you call it? Rack focus, right? When you do like the focus in the back and then focus on the front and focus in the back and focus, and the really sharp edits in this, the stuff that camera tells the story as it should. You have a static camera in a movie and it's boring. You're looking at one thing. The room's not moving. You don't get the vibe from everything going on around you. You can't pull that atmosphere in. But this doesn't do that at all. This camera doesn't sit around. This camera is your eyes. You're brought into this whole film. The whole time you're on the edge of your seat, like,
It was because in that plays, because in the storyline, she's remembering his final days.
That's the whole thing, is it's memory.
Right.
And so it's supposed to be a memory. You're supposed to be thinking the whole time, like, I'm just seeing this through somebody else's eyes. And they did such a good job with that in this movie, especially for being, in the 80s when camera work was pretty fucking shoddy in a lot of horror movies. It was real bouncy. It was real, throw it on a track and run it. But you could tell that they put a lot of thought. The director put a ton of thought into how the audience was going to perceive the camera work in this. And on top of that, good story, great camera work. Ended up being real good. I'd never even heard of this until you had brought it up. And I was like, Pierce Brosnan. Oh, he's not French, is he? And then you go through the first couple of minutes, and you're like, holy shit, and you get sucked into it, and then you're there for the story, you're there for the ride. And at the end of it, you're like, oh, whoa, that was intense.
There's something about British actors that can pick up accents very well. Because I mean, you look at people like if you watch Kate Winslet in Eternal Sunshine on it. If that's the first time you've ever seen her, like I thought she was American for a while until Then you actually hear her speech as regular. It's like, no, she's British.
You see an interview and you're like, wait, the fuck? What?
It's like that's not your voice. But I've noticed with so many British actors, it's just so easy versus like American actors where it's like it's kind of iffy if an American can hit a British accent.
Dude, Americans can't even hit American accents.
Yeah. You're from New York now.
It's
and also
like,
go Southern accent. Like,
as a reason, it seems like Tom Holland, was the best example to be able to switch between the American and the British accent, because he does it so fluidly, and he credits his voice coach for helping, his dialect coach for helping him to nail that, because he's really, really good at it. But then again, I don't know what it is going as an American actor. It's always been difficult. The hardest one I ever had to do was my very first stage production when I broke out and I had to play Van Helsing in a theatrical production of Dracula. And so here I am, like this 23-year-old, just fresh out of school actor. Born in California, right? Born and raised in California, living in Texas. And now I have to play a 63-year-old German man in the late 1800s. And so that was extraordinarily difficult without coming off sounding like Zsa Zsa Gabor. So it was, but I mean, I don't know what it is, but he knocked it out flawlessly. And I thought, for what the film is, for the story, that the story itself was really, really solid. For what it was, it's a very simple, I wouldn't say ghost story, because it centers around these creatures called the Inuit-inspired, which are Inuit trickster spirits, which are drawn to places of death and destruction, and they pretty much just run around. They never sleep, they never eat, they pretty much just cause chaos wherever they go. Which also was interesting, because at the time this film came out, it was 1986. The punk movement was kind of evolving into it was always a counterculture, but the Americanized version of this, of essentially, bands like the Misfits, like Rancid and shit, where there was this idea of this almost anarchic anti-establishment, go at your own pace. And that's what these individuals were doing. And that's what attracted the character to it, was their nomadic lifestyle, was moving about, just going from place to place to place, partying, chaos, do whatever. And that's what draws him into this. And so I loved that McTiernan, had a grounding in this, and the way he was able to convey the fact the whole story is told essentially in retrospect, while keeping it, what's the word I'm looking for? It didn't feel like a memory, because it doesn't really feel. It feels like you're like the audience is experiencing.
Yeah, you're experiencing.
I think it's ultimately this show right here is the hallmark. Essentially is why you can tell McTiernan has had the career that he has had. Just his strength behind the camera and knowing how to utilize his technology, utilizing his work with light and shadow, capturing the alleyways that they did, capturing an almost post-apocalyptic feel in, at the time, contemporary America, when things, the things going on that you never see, or you simply don't want to pay attention to, or you simply write off as be like, whatever, those idiots, and then they go away. That was what was fantastic about this. And then the slow consumption of the protagonist, and the doctor reliving his memories until the conclusion at the end, when we see that it's not. I don't think it's him. I don't think it was him on the bike at the end. I think just taking his form, I think, is what it was. I think that's all, because they can take human form. Mm-hmm. So I think that.
You don't think that was him?
I don't think that would like that. That would think that was I don't think he was turned into a spirit. I think that was a spirit taking his form, is what it was, which is why it's so freaky.
Well, where the fuck is he?
Well, he's dead.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, but like, there's obviously a spirit world. Why can't we follow his after story?
Do you think that he was turned into one of them?
I think somehow that's what happened. I don't know if they gave enough backstory on how those trickster spirits became to be like, yes, that's how that's what happened.
And that works too.
Right. It's
kind of
leaves it
mystery
wide
there,
open. Yeah.
You just leave it. I like how it's kind of ambiguous because you can make arguments for either one on it, but he kind of lets you decide. One of the things I really did want to talk about was when we started talking about like the light and shadow is I really like how, if you notice, he does a lot of really hard shadows, and he continues his style on even with Die Hard. And it's like, if you look at a lot of movies today go on more of a natural lighting, so kind of a soft. So like maybe one side of the face is darker and it softly goes and lights to the other side of the face. You see that it's really, really, that's just what's in style right now. The very naturalized kind of lighting, what people call it. He does the very, very hard shadow. So you'll actually have a definitive line that goes across their face. And it can go here, slant, and all this other kind of stuff. But you'll notice how he plays with that a lot to kind of add to that atmosphere on it. It actually adds maybe a little bit of surrealness to it, because shadows don't work that way in real life sometimes. Right. And so and that style carries on. So I think with this camera work, along with utilizing this light and shadow that way, really creates a definitive style. And you can see how he got Die Hard after this, because it's like I like the way he had some really creative shots during the action sequences. So it's like, okay, well, let's put you in an action movie and let's see what you can do with a full action movie, and it works.
And from there, Predator. So.
Yeah, I mean, he just stayed on that boat.
Yeah, that's what I really, really loved, is because the strongest directors recognize that the camera in itself is almost a character in my opinion, the camera itself should always be a character in and of itself. And you utilize your shot should be able to utilize not just to tell the story of what's going on in front of the camera, but also to convey a particular emotive, like whatever emotion is currently going on in the scene. His use of particular angles, because he and the way not so much Dutch angles. He didn't rely on them he doesn't rely on them hard, but that's where lighting comes in. Is he says like so dynamic, and he's turning the camera in different ways in order to capture, like, here's the skewed perspective of our villains, and here's the normal view of our protagonist. He allows the light in itself to convey that, where it's the world that's this way, and then we are just figures that are operating in this world. And I love that storytelling component, and only from the idea of utilizing the camera itself as its own character, whereas we're seeing through the protagonist as he connects those two, which is what's so important, so that we are immersed alongside this individual. So knowing how to use that, knowing how to capture things, knowing how your cameras work, the technology, and how to control your aperture, your iris, your shutter speed, and everything is really, really, really important. And John Mcterium, I think, solidified himself as a technical master in this respect. He knows what he has, and he knows how to get what he wants, because I would love to have been behind the scenes of this thing. 1986. A fairly low budget film. I'd like to see what they were doing behind the scenes to pull off what he wanted. So this, if there was a behind the scenes of this film, just somebody walking around, documentary thing, I think that would have been cool as shit. Just to see the little tricks that he would have pulled out as far as his lighting and to capture his sound in order to convey the story. I thought it was way more brilliant than it got credit for when it first came out. It kind of was like there, and critics kind of dug it, and it was like, it's this interesting little story, but there was the strength of it, when other studios see this, like, oh wow, he really knows how to convey something here, which is why he was able to, jump to such a large film such as Die Hard.
What's Die Hard? I've never seen that before. I'm joking. Jesus.
JL almost bootied you right there.
I know. He's
like, what?
This is window closes.
You haven't seen the greatest Christmas You haven't seen the greatest Christmas movie ever made?
Oh, it's absolutely a Christmas movie. And I'm not saying that to be like, oh yeah, it's a Christmas.
That's actually the
my parents told. I'm sorry, what was it? Arnold Schwarzenegger Christmas movie, Jingle All the Way. Is that what it's called?
Yeah, Jingle All the Way.
Jingle All the Way. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'm putting two movies together at the same time. Don't worry about me.
But nonetheless, I do like the simplicity of the film. It's a well-written story. Pierce Brosnan is solid and doesn't ham it up or chew it up, which would have been so easily him playing a French character. and I liked everybody else around it. I really, really dug, the punk. I think Adam Ant was what was like the leader of the punk that he beats to death with the tire iron, and then he disappears. So really, really interesting, just stuff in there. I thought it was cool, a staple of the '80s, and I really, I think everybody would really, really dig this if just to give it a shot if they haven't seen it yet. I may have to stream it over in the Discord. This one was a lot of fun to watch. Just a surprising little gem.
Yeah, one of those little films. If you really, really enjoy, especially '80s movies, then absolutely, because it does have. It's kind of stylistic of the '80s, so you can definitely tell in terms of difference of today. But I like '80s films, so it works.
I kept getting drawn back to it. It was the way. Well, what got me was it was the sequence in which Brosnan is following them. And because he's a photographer and he's taking pictures of them, and obviously they come up with the epic scene when he's developing all this film, and he's like, "Wait a minute, they don't appear in any of these."
Where are they?
It's really, really creepy.
Where are they?
But Mcterium managed to, because he's a French anthropologist, and his workplace is just littered with pictures of all the tribes around the world that he has been photographing, and I like how watching it was odd, and I thought it was really, really cool. Watching someone move through Americana, through essentially America, watching us from the outside, kind of like studying us, which I found was interesting. And the way Omniorus Boros, oh, good to see you, Omni. Thank you so much for being here. But he was playing a photographer in this, and I dug how Mcterium caught that, how they just the way he moved through that. I thought that was really, really strong. So I really, really dug it.
So it's definitely a great movie. Check it out. I think it's about time for the Ask the Audience.
I love Mcterium.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Die Hard was the first movie I ever saw. That's what my parents told me. So that's where my film background begins on Die Hard.
When I was 4.
Yeah, when I was 4.
Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
My parents are just like, that's not real blood. Just ignore that.
And it worked.
Then I started watching horror films. So it just went down from there. But actually, I want to ask the audience, what is your favorite Mcterium film? We talked about Nomads. We talked about Die Hard. We talked about Predator. He has a long list of other films. What is your favorite Mcterium film?
John Mcterium. Omniorus Boros. Yippee-ki-yay, Mr. Falcon.
Oh my God! So funny story. That's what they said on the TV version of it.
Yes.
And so it was on one time. I was a kid, and it was on TV, and it says it. And my dad, I had no idea what the line was. I barely knew bad words. I just remember it going yippee-ki-yay, and I see my dad out of the corner of my eye shoot his head around at the TV because just in his head he knew what was coming next and didn't realize that it was on the TV or editor or whatever. But so it was like yippee-ki-yay. He's like, and then it goes Mother Falcon, and he goes, oh. I just remember him taking a breath, going, oh, and then moving, and I didn't know why. And then years and years later, I saw the actual movie. I was like, oh.
Now, well, I love Predator. I love Die Hard. And of course, Last Action Hero. I've loved his films. My favorite of his has got to be Hunt for Red October.
That's a very good film.
I love what he did in Hunt for Red October. I thought every frame of that was brilliant. Sean Connery, young Alec Baldwin, Sam Neill, everybody in that was just kicking ass. It was like, and we will listen to their rock and roll. And I was like, yes, But I thought it was just. I like Tom Clancy novels, and I thought Hunt for Red October was just absolutely brilliant. And probably one of his best efforts. Last Action Hero, I love that one too. Die Hard with a Vengeance. So great stuff. But Hunt for October is absolutely my favorite. But let us know what your favorite John Mcterium film is down in the comments below or here in the live chat. And or let us know, weekinhorror@gmail.com. We got a lot of love here in the live chat. What was it? Let me see here.
They were talking about the 13th Warrior for a while.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And Omnior's Bar says Last Action Hero, damn it. Travis Brown says Last Action Hero. Sarcasm says Die Hard, no effing doubt.
Yeah.
A lot of love for Die Hard, absolutely. Aaron says my dad jerked around and I heard a crack. They declared him dead on arrival from a broken spine. And he says Last Action Hero here. I saw that once. It was enough. Oh, yes, Omni. Yeah, Omni's right. Arnold Schwarzenegger is Hamlet. Come on, not to be. Johnny does, huh?
I got to go Die Hard. I gotta go Die Hard just because it has one of my favorite lines where it's like, "You ask for a miracle, I give you the FBI," and he's just like, "Sold. I'm sold right there."
Donnie does says, I remember watching Predator by sneaking into the living room after bedtime, watching over my dad's shoulder. Nice.
I watched plenty of movies through the crack of the door because the TV was right across from
lots of Die Hard. Come to the coast. We'll get together. Have a few laughs. Yeah. Great stuff. All right. But yeah. Mcterium definitely.
Nobody mentioned Rollerball. Why not?
Oh, you know what? Okay, we want to forget Rollerball and we want to just jump to Basic because at least Basic was decent. At least Basic was up before he ran into all of his legal troubles. I know that he had a lot of legal problems going through a very difficult divorce to be sure. A contentious divorce and really resulted in a lot of problems. And he just he screwed up bad, but hopefully he'll be back. I don't know if he'll ever direct again, but I do know that while he was imprisoned, he wrote a script. He wrote a sequel for the Thomas Crown Affair. I don't know if he'll ever get to shoot it, but hopefully he'll come back. I mean, I think he's one of the best directors out of the '80s, and going forward, and hopefully that's not the end of his career. I wouldn't want to end on a John Travolta film. I really wouldn't. So.
Nobody does.
Nobody wants to end on a John Travolta film. All right.
So what do we got next?
Okay, we up next we have.
JL, you keep hitting the din.
What do you mean?
You just every once in a while you just tune out for a second, and then you're like, see, he's doing it right now.
What are you talking about?
That's a weird way to start a conversation.
This next movie released March 8th, 1978, called The Evil, also known as Cry Demon and House of Evil. So this one was super cool. So directed by Gus Triconis, written by Galen Thompson and Gus Triconis, starring Richard Crenna, Joanna Pettit, Andrew Prine, Cassie Yates, and Victor Buono, legendary Victor Buono. The film centers around a professor and a group of college students who are essentially renovating this old mansion that they've picked up to turn it into a rehab center. And of course, hijinks ensue when the professor uncovers that a hole in the basement that leads essentially to hell, because the place is built on a hellmouth, apparently. So, and of course, all manner of insanity takes place after the fact. I have to admit, I was on for a budget of $700,000. This thing was really, really impressive. I love where it was shot, which is I think it's the Montezuma Mansion in New Mexico. I thought it was really, really cool. And it's just the Montezuma Castle in New Mexico. But this film surprised me. I thought it was really, really, I dug it. But ultimately, it was a seriously polarizing film because, and I really wanted to talk about. Sorry, Chris Dover Music Channel. Good to see you, Chris. Says, does John Travolta want to end on a John Travolta movie? Probably not.
He already has.
Although The Fanatic may just be the end of that career.
John Travolta playing Bruce Willis, playing John Travolta
in a movie about Kevin Bacon.
So this one was seriously polarizing because. And one thing I wanted to dive on about this one is there is a fine line between making a movie that has that asks questions of the audience, that has a real narrative, that wants to engage the audience and make them ask big questions like the good and evil and truth and justice and things that we talk about like motivations behind action, shit like that. Really, really, big topics, and then the visual appeal of the film, making a horror movie and selling it as a horror movie, because essentially that's what this movie tried to do. But a lot of critics felt that it was overshadowed by the extreme graphic nature of the movie, the extreme violence that takes place, the blood and death. That it was like, wow, you get all this visual appeal. Not to mention, Satan showing up at the very end. But a lot of people thought that the message of the film was lost. So there was a big divide when this movie came out.
You get this movie, and so you go into it. It starts up, and you're like, okay, spooky mansion. They're gonna see ghosts, and it's just gonna be this thing again.
Well, it starts out strong. I mean, the caretaker, the one dude is like, I don't want to be here, but I'm cleaning up. Oh, and then they're like, it was kind of like, oh, it's all quiet and creepy and spooky, and then, oh shit, I'm on fire.
Yeah, well, but no, like you said, there's like a psychological insight. The only reason it really works as horror is because you can call it like a psychological horror almost. It's like you said, it's the grotesque nature of it and everything, but like you're talking about polarizing, and that's kind of what you get all the critics' reviews on it, and that's what they all say. It's a suspense film, but there's that it's extremely suspenseful. Do you agree?
Mm-hmm.
It was like so edge of your seat, but also you're like, you got the, oh my god, I got to see what happens next. But sometimes you'll kind of zone out because you're thinking like, wait a second, that part doesn't make any sense unless, and then something happens in the movie. I don't want to ruin this one because this one's really good, but and you're like, what? Back and forth. But yeah, as you were saying, the critics didn't take it very well, saying that they were like minimizing like the theatrical aspect of it to try to push a point. But if you really look at it, they did a very good job, and maybe ahead of their time type situation job with telling a story while also making it just insane. The shit gets real.
Yes.
It's after he opens up that cellar too, and like everything starts locking up, and you're like, wait a second, this might take a turn.
Okay, that's rule number one. Rule number one. You take over a property. That's like old and has a history that you're aware of. Okay. And you find a door in the basement, like in the earth, okay, that is locked with a cross. Right. Don't fucking open it. And he was like, I want to open this thing. I want to open this. I'm sitting here going, what are you doing?
Here's the issue. He had time to think about it and then still opened it.
There's a door in the earth.
It's either going to be dead bodies or a hellhole. So either way.
You already go in, creepy stuff is happening, the dog freaks out and just and then attacks people. And all of it, then you're like your girlfriend is saying, I'm seeing weird shit, there's like apparitions and stuff. And then you go down in the basement and find a door, like this massive like door, like in the fucking earth that's locked with like an Iron Age cross. No.
You look at it, you think, man, the dog was acting weird. My wife's kind of freaking out. Now there's this door. Should open
and the caretaker's missing. Yeah, the caretaker is missing. It's like, it's like, come on.
And it's not like they didn't notice either. They're like, what the fuck? And then it's like we wouldn't even have stuff like Supernatural if people didn't open stupid fucking doors that were glowing or had crosses on them. Or, we wouldn't have any paranormal movies at all.
Jinju brings up a point. He's like, wasn't he supposed to be hearing voices driving him to open the door? I did not pick up anything like that when I was watching the movie. I figured that I just came across he was down in the basement. He was looking around. They repeated the deal where he looks in the big furnace, where the fire came out beforehand, at the very beginning of the film. And then he's like, he doesn't find anything. And then he comes across and he's like, oh, hey, look at this. And then he like uncovers and he's like, oh, wow, there's a door here. And it has like this giant cross that's stuck through the handles. It's like, and it doesn't look like it's really meant to be like, opened in that respect. It looks like it's meant to be opened from the other side, like, given the architecture of it. So I was like, come on, dude. I didn't get the sense from the film that he was being compelled to open it by anything. I guess he just found something. It was like, oh, this is interesting. I'm going to open this door that was, seems to have been sealed some time ago in a holy manner. And I thought, I was like, come on, that was just silly. But the stuff that it gave, but that worked. It worked for Richard Crenna's character. Richard Crenna plays the professor, and throughout the entire thing, he's big on like, this shit doesn't exist. I'm a scientist. There's got to be a logical explanation for these things. And even when, it's in his face, he's still looking for something to try and grab onto until he finds himself towards the end, face to face with the devil himself. And he found his faith quite quickly. I guess it happens. The devil's standing in front of you, and you're like, oh, well, I guess I'm a believer now.
Well, that's the proof I need.
I guess that's all the proof. Exactly. It's that's all the proof I needed. I appreciate it very much.
Devil popped up in front of you like, Jesus. Oh, I get it.
Oh, it all makes sense now. I appreciate the clarification. And then she comes in there with the fucking cross, like, oh, I was like, that was fucking sweet. I thought that was cool as shit. She tried, and Victor Buono played I thought it was a pretty convincing devil. I liked his devil. It had a kind of he was a heavyset actor, and he had kind of this kind of gregarious energy to him, which is the characters he usually played. Then he got to play the devil in this one, and I kind of dug it because there was a sinister nature to his gregarious countenance that I thought was like, oh, that really plays. And so I thought Victor Buono was a good choice for this. So I really dug the whole layout. Not to mention, to shoot in a location like this, I've seen the size of this place. That would be amazing.
That's probably where most of the budget went, is just for that place.
Just to secure it for the shoot.
Yeah, it's like, hey, can we live here for 3 weeks, for 4 weeks, and then just make a movie?
That was the big thing that I got. So the film itself sets up the whole deal. The division, or addressed to the division line between atheism and theism, between logic and reason and fear and faith, and then ask questions about what is good, what is evil, what what your intentions are, what is actually true, what do we just make up to make ourselves feel better. It has all of these little themes that are running through, especially in the conversations that everybody's having. Like, why are you doing this? I'm setting up a rehab facility. Yes, but you're setting up but you're doing the rehab facility for this particular cause. Like, yeah, and so it really, there was a good story going on there, good solid writing there, where it's pointed out by the very students that he has recruited to help him renovate this place. Even they are kind of like, well, you're giving us credit to come and help you do this. This is effectively a financial endeavor, and you're using free labor in order to get all the work done and just giving us credit so that we can get ahead. So everybody's doing it for their own. There's no altruism here in making this rehab place. And so we've all got to come to terms like, is this the world we live in? But then, so you have a really solid story there, make it into a ghost story. The place is haunted. And then the whole, gate to hell underneath the, that's underneath the entire place. And then the real shit starts happening. And that's when it kind of turns, I almost thought, into, this is almost like a slasher movie, because just a supernatural slasher movie where the evil spirits are doing things to these people, from, the circular saw scene to that one actually got me. That one was kind of rough. Just, just the idea of like, I was like, oh, fuck me. that was fucking brutal. And to the quicksand scene outside, and then the storm that rolls in. I thought it was really good, but it kind of overwhelms it, and you almost forget the kind of movie you started watching and the movie where it finishes. So it may have hurt it, but thinking about this and give me your guys' opinion on this, that this was essentially the ghost story, the haunted house story in the horror genre. This was big time throughout the 60s, the 70s. This was a staple. House on Haunted Hill of Vincent Price, and essentially, like anything, all the way back to what was it? House of the Devil in the late 1800s. Ghost stories were a big thing. The time of Harry Houdini and Sir Arthur Conan Doyle, and spiritualism and mediums. Ghost stories were big business, whether they were literature, theater, or in film. But there was a kind of switch, or I guess I don't want to say they died off, because we still do ghost stories today, but they're more violent. They take notes or tropes from other genres, from typically slasher genres, to make them more graphic, where the ghosts are doing this. You look at movies like Grave Encounters of Paranormal Activity. And this right here in 1978 was the burgeoning of the slasher genre. Texas Chainsaw Massacre is already out. Halloween will be releasing that year. In a couple of years, in less than 2 years, we're going to be getting Friday the 13th and The Burning and so on and so forth. Nightmare on Elm Street. The slasher film is creeping in because, Texas Chainsaw came out in 1974. So the slasher movie's coming in, and we're getting this new kind of genre that's like really kind of starting to blow up. And this movie tried to take from both the supernatural ghost story that has existential questions to the violence and visual aplomb of the slasher genre and blend the two together. And I admire that. I think it didn't play. Maybe it was, like Alex said earlier, it was a little too ahead of its time in trying to blend these two together, which is why critics at the time were like, what does this film want to be? I think it knew. I just think they weren't ready for it.
Here's the thing, and now that you're talking about it, I'm listening, and yeah, it might have been ahead of its time, but it might not have been in the right region, because you see a lot of this supernatural. It's scary, it's psychological. There's like a whole story behind the ghosts, but then also kind of that slasher aspect is like J-horror. A lot of that has a lot to do with, they really dig into the background of, the religion of the ghosts and why they're there, and it's always like the big story, and it's suspenseful. But then also you got stuff, like The Ring and The Grudge, where people get brutally murdered by said ghost. So, I mean, it plays in one region, but maybe not. Maybe we can't do stuff like J-horror. We can't do suspenseful yet slashery yet psychological stuff.
I wouldn't necessarily, because I wouldn't put this on track with slasher. Just for the sake of, if you have a spirit, say, going around, it kind of misses some of the other tropes on it, because people can just die in supernatural films, and doesn't necessarily make it a slasher. But what you end up having is you have this split, and I always go back to the split happens in 1968 when you have Rosemary's Baby and Night of the Living Dead comes out. Night of the Living Dead comes out, and it shows that you can make a successful low-budget film. And then shortly afterwards, you get, say, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Halloween, and the slasher genre is born, because most of the early slasher genres are cheap. Halloween was made, I think, for $350,000. Not the first Nightmare on Elm Street was about the same budget. You have these little nothing budget-wise movies that end up making a big impact. And then you end up having is you have the supernatural element, which came from Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby, one of the biggest films that came out that year. And then shortly afterwards, you get The Exorcist. And then once The Exorcist comes out, then the studios are going for the supernatural stuff. They have the money.
Then the gates of hell open.
They do. They can, because you look at The Exorcist, you can put that on a sound stage, and they can do all the fancy effects. So then you have The Exorcist, you have The Omen, you have Poltergeist that comes out a couple of years later. So you have this track, and this is where I see the evil is on that track. It goes along that supernatural. Doesn't necessarily have the budget of The Exorcist or Poltergeist on it, but getting that location and the ability to pull off a lot of the effects that they were able to pull off, it feels like a higher budget film. It doesn't feel Halloween. I love Halloween, but Halloween feels like a low budget movie. They did the best what they could with what they have. This feels like a studio film.
It was those big sweeping shots of the actual exterior of the castle, and that particular scene where they walk up into one of the parapets, and you can see the huge view of the valley out beyond it. And I was like, it gave a much grander sense of the environment that this thing is taking place in. Not to mention the little stunt scene when they try to get out by using the rope or I guess using the cable to try and scale to the outside, and then the guy winds up getting electrocuted. Or actually, no, he immolates. That's what he does. He essentially is trying to escape, and he just goes up in flames. So pulling that little stunt just gave this grand scale to the building they're in. That was really, really nice, because if you look at the dimensions of this place, that place is enormous.
It's huge.
They could have easily set up an entire crew within there, never would have seen them, and still been able to move freely. The place it's a castle essentially. So, and I loved it. I like it. That's the whole point of things that can make it look more than it is, which was brilliant.
And exactly. And the thing is, I know we've touched on this earlier. We were talking about what about the clear message and everything? The number one thing of making a film is, do you enjoy watching it? Some films miss the mark but they're really fun to watch. And I'll go and watch them again versus like, oh yeah, that film really made a powerful point, and then I never want to see it again because I didn't enjoy watching it on it. But this is a film I enjoyed watching it. If it missed a point or didn't hammer in it enough, who cares?
and for me personally, I actually kind of dug that because I watched it twice. Because the first time I was like, oh wow, this is kind of introspective. I dig with the story they're trying to tell you. Oh, and violent ghost shenanigans. I mean, kicking off the first 5 minutes of your movie, you just like get someone just immolated out of the blue. It's like, fire! I was like, damn. Okay, so that's the way you're kicking it off. Okay, that's good. And then we get into some. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Good setup, characters I could believe in, dealing with the shit. The almost like sexual assault by that ghost of I can't remember the character's name because that's one thing that didn't stick with me is a lot of the tertiary characters' names, but there was like an almost sexual assault of the African American girl, and she's up there in the room by herself because she's been traumatized, and then all of a sudden her this whatever spirit or whatever thing is attacking her and ripping her clothes off and everything, and that's just it's going hog wild, and then of course that visual appeal. At a moment, I was like, I almost forgot what the whole thing was going until they meet the devil, and the devil's like, haha, I could do this forever. Oh, fuck, crossing my chest, which was fucking great. That chick was brilliant. I seriously thought they were gonna have to leave him down in the basement because it was like, oh, wait a minute, how's he gonna get up? And this is where it goes. Horror movie rules: know how to climb a rope. Because the only reason Richard Crenna survived this was he knew how to climb a rope. I was like, oh, so he helps her out because the hole's up there, and he gets her out, and I'm like, oh shit, and he's down there, and he's like, she can't pull him up. She's like, 100 pounds soaking wet. How the hell is she gonna pull this man up? Oh, rope. Okay, well, he can climb a rope? There you go. Know how to climb your ropes. That's very, very important. And
take anything from the Weekend Horror podcast.
And the end of it, I was kind of like, oh wait, so I had to go back and watch again. And keep in mind, it's like, yeah, you're going to see a lot of crazy stuff. People getting electrocuted, people putting circular saws in their hands, getting swallowed up by the earth. You're going to see all this cool stuff, but don't forget what's ultimately going on. And that was kind of cool on the second viewing because it plays a little bit more into the characters' actions and kind of like their frame of mind towards the end when he literally encounters the devil himself. And so I dug that. I really, really dug that. So it forced a second viewing just to make sure I could keep something in mind. Smart film. Yeah, and I think at the time, and I'm gonna hold with Alex here. I think Alex is spot on that this was a little ahead of its time in that respect. I think that they had a cool story here, and they took the violent elements that were starting to rise up, through Hammer horror, was big on the blood and the guts and everything, and they took from that what people seem to really like to see, and then use those elements in a film that was smartly written, and I dug that. I think it was obviously went under the radar, and not to mention a fantastic score, which I fucking know, I've heard this score before. Not before this movie came out. I've heard the score used again in other movies. I've not been able to place it as of yet. It was driving me mad. I was hunting for like an hour trying to find. I found out who did the score, and I was like, I know I've heard this used in other films, but I haven't been able to place it yet. I'm still going to keep looking.
No, I couldn't figure it out either. You had said that when we talked on Sunday.
Yeah, the music was by Johnny Harris.
Yeah,
and Johnny Harris is a legendary composer. Who, I mean, if you look at his name, his list of the stuff that he's worked on is so extensive. But I know that what he wrote for this movie, I know it's been used elsewhere. When you watch the movie, you will hear it, especially in the quieter moments when they're having doing exposition or whatever. You'll hear it in the back, and it doesn't drown the moment, which is fantastic. So really, really good stuff. Oh, I see the plot hole has joined us. Good to see you, plot hole. And wrote it no less name. Gabba Gabba to you. Thank you so much for being here. And there's Jack Burton. Just reminds me of The Entity. Exactly. The scene with the girl, that definitely reminded me of The Entity. Very much so. I know that probably made some people in 78 that made them kind of uncomfortable watching
that. Only a little.
only a tad.
I feel something. What is that? Oh, trauma.
So, despite the fact that a lot of people, a lot of critics believe that this film was overwhelmed by the other half of it. I think it was smartly done. But I'm really curious. When this I want to ask the audience, when this movie came out, 1978, the Satanic Panic hadn't happened yet. That didn't occur until the 80s. And so, but the idea of Satan and people who worship Satan and Satanism and stuff was a topic within the nation. You know, people. This was a subject that people didn't really like talking about, but it was brought up. So, what is considering the devil shows up in this? What is your favorite Satan-centric horror film where Satan shows up, or it revolves around Satan, or Satan's involved somewhere? What is your favorite Satan-centric horror movie or satanic horror film? Let us know in the live chat or down below in the comments or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Love to hear what people think. Absolutely, my absolute, I guess, dang, because there's so many. But Satan-centric horror film, I'm going to have to go. I'm going to have to go with The Devil's Advocate.
Oh shit! Yeah, I forgot about that.
That is a good one.
The only thing I can think of is The Devil, where the elevator.
Oh, Devil,
yeah.
M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong.
Shyamalan Ding Dong. I think that was one of my first watch by myself scary movies ever. It was great. It'll always stick in my mind.
Jinju says it's definitely not Mono's Hands of Fate. Jinju, did you know that Mono's got there was almost a sequel to that film?
Yeah,
Almost.
there was almost a sequel. There's a fan-made sequel.
Oh, fan-made sequel.
Manos Hands of Fate 2. There's a fan-made feature-length one. It doesn't have anybody related to the original 60s one when it came out. And there's also a 20-minute kind of a high-budget fan-made one also. So there's actually kind of a sequel and a half.
Monos 2, Torgo's Reckoning. Torgo. Aaron brings up Angel Heart. Oh, yeah. Robert De Niro. Fucking A.
Nice.
Wasn't that Mel Gibson?
The master would not approve. Yeah, that's right, Dave Cernick. The master would not approve. With his knobby knees.
So apparently the guy who played Torgo while filming did lots and lots of LSD.
Well, yeah.
So
did you not see the movie?
It explains the look on his face.
That's why he's like reaching towards the camera. He's just like, because he's tripping balls.
I don't know which cameras.
Constantine's a good one.
Nerd Journal brings up Warlock 2. Donnie does that, brings up Constantine. Peter Stormare was pretty badass. For such a small portion of film, but Peter Stormare's Devil was pretty damn cool.
Ninth Gate. How about that one?
Oh, fuck. Why? Why?
We had to bring Johnny Depp into it somehow. It's the only way I could think, okay?
Aaron says, just enough LSD to shoot, not so much you think the camera's staring into your soul.
I think maybe that played into the aspect of his character, actually, to be honest with you. That's that look on his face. Fuck, I could see it.
Thank you, Jack. Jack Bird says, Ninth Gate ain't horror. Get the fuck. I agree. Thank you, Jack Bird, and I can't stand that fucking movie.
Fair enough.
I can't stand the last the last 5 minutes of that movie. The whole fucking movie. Oh my God. I've never been so pissed off at a film in my life to make me love it so much. Everything about that movie, the direction, the writing, the story, the visual appeal, the cinematography, Johnny Depp, everything was brilliant until the last 5 minutes. It's like, and credits. I was like, fuck yourself. I was so fucking
rage quit. Table flip.
I rage quit. I did. Wrote it in the last name, says end of days? Question mark? You're a choir boy compared to me. A choir boy. Fucking Arnie. Fantastic. All right. Let's dive into our next one. And I've so been looking forward to talking about this one.
Man, so you fucked me up with this because you fucked me up with this one because it's called something else.
It has a couple of names, but that's
so. let's get through this part because this is a great movie. This was Late Phases or Night of the Wolf, depending on where you're looking. This one came out March 9th, 2014. This was directed by Adrian Garcia Bogliano, I think. It could be Bogliano. I don't want to fuck up his name because like I said, it's a great movie. This one was starring Nick D'Amici, Ethan Embry, Lance Gass, Tina Louise, Caitlin O'Heaney, Aaron Cummings. And this is not what I expected it was going to be, JL. So thanks for bringing this in my life. I had no idea this was even a werewolf movie until we started watching it. But so essentially a Vietnam War vet who's blind is being moved into... He's extremely independent and wants to be moved. So whatever. His son helps him move. They kind of had a falling out. And I was really pissed off about what happened at the beginning of this movie, by the way. One of the first bad things that happens with the dog. And so this blind man and his dog are left alone, and this town has a werewolf problem, and he kind of catches on, and he tries to hunt down the werewolf, and he kind of gets it wrong a few times, but then ultimately has to battle the werewolves at the end of the movie, which was fantastic. Was it 5 of them?
Yeah, there were 5. Yeah.
So this blind guy and his dog get left alone, and there's an attack, and then this pissed off Vietnam veteran loses his dog and goes fucking John Wick on a town full of werewolves. Eventually, the creepy ass fucking the priest who ended up. Yeah, sorry. This one was every aspect. It was simple. That was the thing. It was extremely simple, and it was done extremely well. And the critics reading up on it, it was like they didn't like it. And it was like, then you get these horror fans that come in, they're like, no, this is absolutely the best fucking werewolf movie I've ever seen. Because, this one was different, but fun.
Definitely one of the best.
Yeah.
And what this one...
I mean, outside of, like, the originals, I think...
Oh, yeah. Well, that was what was brilliant about this one, is because, werewolf films are typically... And we were talking about this when we were doing the breakdown of it. Werewolf films come in 2 different flavors. You've got werewolves, where the werewolf is the threat, where it's typically just like... the werewolf is itself, and then, people having to deal with the werewolf. So then you have the werewolf as a metaphor for something that's going on in the story itself, where you have like in Ginger Snaps, girls going through, essentially puberty, that change from child to adult, from child to adulthood. And then, of course, child to adolescent, and then but that change that everyone goes through, and then the werewolf, the change itself coming on, something that is beyond the realm of their control, and how the changes that come along with that. And so it's either the werewolf is changed or the werewolf as the adversary. And this particular one is the werewolf as a metaphor in this. Now, yes, Nick D'Amici is kicking ass, throwing down, and the werewolves themselves I thought were pretty decent. I love practical effects. I'll always go practical effects. And I love it was a unique take on what they looked like. It wasn't your classic howling werewolf, and it wasn't like it looks like more like a brown bear in a silver bullet. I dug these ones. And then, of course, the thing that really sells it, when you are going for the metaphor story, and something that is so important that we stress very, very often, that sometimes makes the absolute best horror films, is human characters. And that, essentially ensuring that your film, that your script, that the characters themselves are well built and they're acknowledgeable, and we can say this is a real person, like this is a person. And when you have stock characters, like pretty much most of the victims in any slasher film or whatever, where we don't know anything about them, building up your characters allows us to immerse ourselves in that story and understand the metaphor. Because the metaphor does, you can't really apply that metaphor to a one-dimensional character. Then we don't care, and then the entire bulk of your film is lost. That was what was so important. And the performances of D'Amici, of Nick D'Amici, the performances of Tom Noonan, of Ethan Embry, everyone in this was so strong for such a small budget and kind of for an indie film. I was so impressed, and it comes across extremely well. This is why human characters are so very important in order to convey the deeper themes of whatever story you're trying to tell.
Well, and then see, this is why it's really important to build 3-dimensional characters that can have depth, that characters that can justify their actions. It's like you can make a character, you can take, say, the high school jock with the Letterman jacket who picks and he's star of the football team and all that. And we've seen hundreds and hundreds of times in movies of that particular character, whether it's about them, about somebody, whatever on it. But then adding to the fact that maybe he's dealing with abuse at home. That add now, it's kind of like this is his way of just adding little elements like that to a character. Now gives it that much depth, because a bully is going to play those actions differently based off the motivation. So it's not, well, is he mean for the sake of mean, or is he mean because he's trying to hide some kind of trauma? Is he mean because he is trying to impress some girl? And you're going to be mean in different ways on it. So that's why giving your characters depth, because the thing is this, if your characters are interesting enough, people will stay around. If you look at movies like 12 Angry Men, Reservoir Dogs, Breakfast Club, where you have characters that have such depth, you can stay almost in one room the entire time. Right. And we'll sit there. 12 Angry Men, they're in a jury room the entire time, but there's so much stellar acting. Every juror has a rich backstory and that's how you have a room full of three-dimensional characters. And that's what makes Late Phases such a good movie, because we have Nick D'Amici, you root for him. It's like you're rooting for him. You can see some of the stuff that he's been through, and how it's one of the things about being a veteran, especially older veterans, is veterans like to feel useful. And as you get older, some of that is stripped away from you because it's just the fact of old age. And so a lot of veterans rely on their independence. They want to be independent. You talk to veterans who are in their 80s and 90s, and it's so important for them to be independent despite disabilities like being blind, maybe handicapped in other ways. They really, really rely on that. And so adding that element onto it gives his character that depth on it. It gives it that and that's what makes this movie so good.
Absolutely. Nick and I first came across Nick D'Amici in Mulberry Street. There's one about the rats that turn people into like were-rats, and they start descend upon New York City and tear everything apart. And he played kind of like an ex-boxer. He played an ex-boxer in that. And it was decent. It carried his characterization wasn't really necessary for that movie, because that movie was more of just a monster flick. That was a part of the After Dark horror fest. And then I saw him in Stakeland, where he plays the old kind of like the traveling, the nomadic vampire hunter in a world in a country that's been devastated by vampires. But then he gets this opportunity to really, really shine, and something that he captured. And I'd love to be able to talk with him, talk about his preparation for this, because I rarely do you see, I would say, veterans depicted in such a realistic fashion. The way he comes across, because ultimately we see the movie where we invest in his journey and his arc in this, but ultimately he's not a likable person at all. Like he really isn't. He's abrasive. He's acidic. He doesn't take. When people try to reach their hands out to him, he's more apt to slap it away or to come up with some justification why he doesn't need their hand. It was like, even when someone's just opening a door for him because he's blind. He was like, "Here, let me get the door for you." He's like, "I got it." Okay. He's like, "I'm blind, not crippled." And the way he's attempting to interact with the world, but in the quiet moments when he's alone, he recognizes where he's wrong and that he simply can't let this. It's just the way he is. And I loved his portrayal in this. And of course, not to mention, he is still an absolute badass, which I dug. You sleep on the old blind vet, and I thought that his performance was his best performance out of anything I've seen him in. I thought he was deep, flawed, tragic, and ultimately heroic, and completes his arc in that final telephone call to his son before the shit goes down. And that's why this movie was so compelling. It's got werewolves in it, and ultimately it comes down to a showdown, 5 werewolves, because ultimately the werewolf in the town, who knows he's a werewolf, realizes that D'Amici is on to him. And D'Amici is kind of a dicey character. He's like, there's somebody you don't want to fuck with. So he goes around and he makes a bunch of other werewolves so that they can join him and try to take the old man out. And ultimately it descends into a 5v1 fight between this old blind Vietnam veteran, 5 years in Vietnam. Oof.
A long time.
Right. And then they descend upon his house and he proceeds to wreak motherfucking havoc on these assholes, which I really, really loved. But that's what was so fantastic, is the whole film in and of itself is essentially how we deal with trauma.
It lined up really well. So you had the dog dying, then you had all this other stuff going on, and it took them till the next full moon.
And I want to give credit here. I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I want to give credit here. That dog fucked that werewolf up.
Bro, yeah, it's a war.
That German Shepherd fucked that werewolf up. Shadow wrecked that motherfucker. I was like, that was badass. I love it when the dog is a hero.
You got that happened. That was traumatic for him. He's been through all this other traumatic stuff, but this traumatic thing happened. And it takes him a few days to kind of get everything straightened out. And when he's finally like ready, then it's the full moon. He's like ready to put the dog in the hole, but then like the full moon's coming, so he's ready in more ways than one. And the aspect of like how he identified, he used, his hearing to kind of pick it out. And even if he got it wrong a couple of times, he persisted until he figured out what the fuck was going on. Mm-hmm. And then that all got tied up right at the end. And, he knew, he made that phone call, and then, his son gets there and the thing happens. And it's like the whole thing wraps up really nicely. Starts out good, has a really good middle part, and then wraps up really nicely. And then, that's another aspect of the whole thing. That's what I'm saying about the way that he was listening. He portrayed this disability so well that it was like that alone made the movie fantastic.
Yeah, no, Sarcasm says, any sighted person who can actually pull off a blind character convincingly is a damn fine actor.
Yeah.
Really, really well. I want to ask you, James, what did you think of just him using he's like, when he lost his cane, using his E-tool as his cane? I thought that was okay. That's exactly what he would do. It's like, I like the feel of this one better. It's just...
So it was cool the fact that he brought it out, but I'll tell you my personal experience of E-tools, and maybe E-tools are different back then than they are today, but they're trash. I've broken like 5 of them.
They're really meant as like a dig your shithole one-time shovels.
Well, then at the end when he's sharpening the edges of that thing, I was like, oh shit. So I dug in this, and like I said, the film in and of itself is a metaphor for trauma. And you look at how, and it examines how different people deal with trauma. And that's essentially the relationship between Tom Noonan's priest and Nick D'Amici's veteran. When the two of them are talking about, because both of them old, very old, looking back on their lives, looking at the mistakes that they've made, trying to find some semblance of peace with, decisions or with either actions or inactions in the past. And how, those traumas we come to identify, they could become a part of our identity, as well as the guy who was the werewolf, who is desperately seeking some way to contain what he is or control what he is, or the priest thinking, is like, oh, he thinks he's got this problem, but just no, he's actually a fucking werewolf. And how we deal with those things, and how eventually we can either overcome them, we can, like as he does, as Nick D'Amici's character does, as Ambrose does, he overcomes his trauma in the end. And he recognizes, this is your last opportunity to do this. Can you do this? And then, of course, the werewolf guy who just gives into his trauma. It's like, no, this is what I am, and this is what I have to do. And just, all over. It's like, none of this other bullshit works. Faith doesn't work. This doesn't work. This obviously is what I'm meant to be. I'm meant to be a monster, and then just be, revels in what he is. So, and then the priest himself trying to, essentially, he was a priest because of his prior traumas, trying to find some semblance, trying to make some sort of mea culpa with the universe in that respect. And just, I loved how each individual was dealing with their thing, even the people around him. The lady who lived next door, one of his neighbors whose husband is stuck in an iron lung, one of the last remaining iron lungs in the country, and how her frustration over that comes out in her nature. She projects it onto other people and the people around him. And I dug that. I really, really loved it. And then, of course, Ethan Embry, his son, the son of the guy who, his mother's dead. His mother died. I think, died of cancer. And then all of a sudden, he wasn't there. He took off on the family. He went blind. He was pissed off all the time. He wasn't a good dad. He was an even worse husband, and him recognizing this. And then the son having to deal with this and the fact that in the end, his father was protecting him, and that's why he chased him out of there. Because you can't be here, so I got to say whatever I have to in order to get you the fuck out of here. And then the son recognizing that at the end, the trauma of his abandonment, the trauma of Ambrose's PTSD, and the shit that he saw when he was in the war, and then of course everyone else around him. I loved the meditation on trauma in this and how we all deal with it individually. Take it to its extreme, becoming a werewolf, or in a very realistic fashion, going to war. And especially how people reacted, obviously, to Ambrose when he came back from that war and the lack of acceptance and having to deal with that shit. Like, I have to make my own place because no one's going to make a place for me. It was conveyed beautifully throughout this film. And we are with Ambrose along with the journey. And especially when he starts, like, whooping ass.
Well, one thing you have on top of it, and this happens with a lot of veterans, is you are built for war. You are built to do that. That becomes your purpose. And then for him, he goes to war and he's very successful while he was over there. And then all of a sudden you come back and all this training, all this effort, all this thing that got built up, and then it's just like you don't need it anymore. And it's you kind of lack a purpose,
right,
towards anything, because now, sure, you may know a dozen different ways to kill somebody, but you come back to the States,
and that's illegal.
Yeah, that's illegal. You can't do that.
Can't do it anymore.
So you have him trying to hold on to his independence, and then all of a sudden, when the werewolf attack starts happening, it gives him purpose again. It's almost
an enemy says something to engage with.
Instead of just
because like he says, people don't come to places like this, to the retirement community he's in. It's like people don't come to these places to live; they come here to die.
Right.
It's essentially what he's doing. And then all of a sudden, there's one last thing I can put my hands on, and I can do something here before I check out.
I can go out on my own terms.
Right. Exactly. That's what I was going to say. This is my time. I decide when it happens. This is my life. That was absolutely, it was fantastic all the way to, and like you're talking about the special effects, we didn't even really touch on that, but like I
love the camera work on this.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what's good, and that's key, especially when depicting the transformation sequences is how you utilize your camera.
Right.
And I thought this was good. I looked into it and I couldn't find anything that would disagree with me. But the transformation sequence was well planned out, and I could not see where any cuts were as the camera is moving about when the guy decides to transform in front of the priest.
Where the camera starts moving around.
Yeah, where the camera's on him, and then it goes back to his deal, and then it comes back over here, and then goes down, sees his hand, and goes up to the reaction. And I wouldn't see any cuts. And that was extremely well executed as far as planning out what you're going to show of the transformation up to this point. Because at one point the camera cuts over to him, the camera cuts over here, and then he's the eyes are in, and so the slow but steady changes and revealing of what's happening with a live actor and then someone sitting here watching it happen. That was very impressive, especially for a low budget film. I was
absolutely, and the werewolves were different, scary, creepy, different, which was nice. It wasn't like the same old werewolf.
Yeah, it didn't have a classic look to it.
Yeah, it was definitely
and not puppets.
No, that was another thing.
Not puppetry.
And then at the end, when they showed like the halfway transformed werewolves on the ground, it was like, oh, that was clever. Okay, you can see, you put some thought into that one.
Oh, Sarcasm brings up if he hadn't have expected to die, he would have worn his BDUs, not his dress uniform. That's true. He goes full dress when he goes into this combat. So he was not expecting to come out of this. So,
which I'll tell you about dress uniforms, they are not comfortable to wear. They are not.
He seemed like he was working it pretty well.
That was the only part that was like, I get the point,
but
like,
you're not supposed to do that. You're not going to be able to fucking Krav Maga with dress blues on.
I just well, okay. So Ronan says no cuts. Then the camera panned over. there was no editing cuts where you can see where the camera where they yelled cut and then they moved to another deal and they set up another shot and then they put the two together. There was fluid motion throughout the whole thing, which essentially means that in the space that they're working in, which you could have done it on a stage. It was like a recreated living room or the living room of this house. You have one person standing here, one person standing here, and here is your werewolf and here's your guy reacting to it. The camera is essentially in between the two of them. And the camera is moving in such a way as to convey the entire space and moving in one motion where you see everything panning over and then coming here and then coming here and then going up and then going down. But there's no cuts, at least none that I could see. Either they were absolutely seamless or they had planned out the practical effects to the extent that they could, that while the camera was off the werewolf, they could make adjustments to what was going on with the transformation and then get the crew out of there before the camera came back around, which takes incredible levels of planning because you got to be like, now you're in. There you go here, and now they're out, and so on and so forth in order to add things to it, which I thought was really, really impressive.
That'd be intense.
And I thought it was a good take on it and not one that you see very often because typically you'll get cutaways to people reacting, then you go back, or you'll get like, here's the face, then here's the feet, then here's the hands, then here's the back, and then here's this, and so on and so forth. The Howling did that, where they moved to different stages at one time, and then to the girl reacting when the guy was transforming in the infirmary. And then usually you have that. Same thing happened in, you get the same cuts in American Werewolf in London. But in this one, they didn't, and I thought that was quite impressive.
Yeah, it's something. Even just go to YouTube and Google it. I mean, it's like go to YouTube and search for it. You'll be able to find a transformation scene on it. It's very impressive.
Aaron says, climbing ladder in a military dress uniform might result in a vasectomy.
No, you look good, but they're not comfortable to wear.
Luckily, he didn't do a lot of that. He just kind of got like knocked down, and but I mean, I love you, dude. Him kicking ass like that, it just goes to show that, you know, I love the digital, like we don't allow guns here. It's like, what? Because of blind, there's no rule against a blind person owning a gun. It's like, look, I'm a weapons expert. I know more about guns than you know about Pop-Tarts. Handling his shit like he knows what he's doing. And then, you know, waging fucking war on these assholes was just fantastic.
And see, I always love horror films where you see people fighting back. That's why I love like Dog Soldiers. I love even Chopping Mall, where they go to the hardware store and they're like organizing. We're going to fight these. We're going to fight these robots. You're next. I love
robots.
I love Chopping Mall, but I love it when you have like people who are like, "Whoa, we're going to gear up and we're going to fight back." I always love horror movies like that.
It's also them. For sure. All right. Well, I think we've covered literally every second of this movie. I'm pretty sure nobody has to watch it anymore because we've talked from front to back.
Now that brings me it out.
Yeah. Now we get Eugene, go put on your werewolf costume. I'd like to ask the audience. We were just talking about the werewolf transformation and how this one is very much different than iconic movies like The Howling. And there's wrong ways to do it, but you know, there are also a lot of really creative ways that it has been done. So I'd like to ask the audience, what is your favorite werewolf transformation? Let us know in the live chat down below or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. Text message rates may apply.
My favorite overall? My favorite overall has got to be The Howling. Because it was both scary, intimidating, and gross.
It was gross, and it was kind of funny, and it was terrifying. Yeah, it was different.
And the werewolves looked fantastic.
Yeah, it was done really well.
Towering 7-foot friggin' monsters. You know, I thought those ones looked fantastic. That'll pretty much always be my favorite. Was that particular transformation scene?
My favorite would probably have to be Cursed. Just the CGI effects were just really on point. Definitely on point.
Ooh,
totally kidding, by the way. Totally fucking kidding.
I wasn't even going to address it. I was like, I would have to say, Ginger Snaps did it pretty good. The slow, you know, kind of like asymmetrical change to her body, to Catherine Isabel's character, to Ginger's body over time. how it was slowly occur. It wasn't like one scene where she transformed. She was slowly but surely turning into a monster, piece by piece. And I kind of dug how they went until eventually she was this giant, this titanic albino werewolf. Let's see, NA says Teen Wolf.
I love Teen Wolf.
Sarcasm says I stand by my list: American Werewolf in London, Ginger Snaps, Dog Soldiers, and The Howling.
Yeah.
There's some more love from Angel Rivera. Good to see you, Angel. Says American Werewolf in London. Aaron says the Monster Squad was cool based on context. The drooling while he's on the phone was a nice touch. Yeah. Plot hole, those were vampires, not werewolves. I know he did it on purpose. I know he's just seeing if I would say something, but I'm saying something. Another name says not Underworld.
Listen, I can talk about Underworld for like an hour on some weird stuff, the weird hues in that film.
Strange stuff indeed. All right.
Thank God nobody said it. I was keeping my mouth shut. But
which one?
Nothing. I'm not saying it.
There's another one called Bad. I think it was Bad Moon. Bad Moon was pretty deep. Bad Moon was pretty deep about the guy who's like the uncle who's traveling abroad and then comes home, and then his sister-in-law and her son live there, and he kind of crashes with them for a bit, and he himself is a werewolf.
Turns out
but in that one, the family dog was the hero because the family dog ends up like fucking him up royally at some point. It's always cool. Aaron says, an American Werewolf in Paris, Alex.
No, close, but no.
No. I didn't ignore you, Johnny. Did he say something else?
I don't know.
He says, Sex Machine turned into a werewolf thing. No, it was that gross vampire snake thing. It wasn't a werewolf. They were like serpent vampires.
Yeah, he said a thing. Oh,
Ronaldo's name says not Twilight.
God damn it!
Giant CG.
There it is. That's what I was trying to avoid the whole time. I hope we get past it.
Giant CGI puppies. Hey, Tony Regime, good to see you. Thank you so much for being here. Says hello, Week in Horror and panel. Definitely.
Hello, Tony.
Hello.
All right, we got one more.
We do, and Eugene. I'm so sorry.
This one wasn't that bad.
I mean, we've watched worse.
We've definitely watched worse.
Okay, yeah, but we've also been doing this for 3 seasons, so this is
But if there was a bottom of the barrel for this episode, this one is it. We're talking about Parasite, not the one released in 2019, the good film, the one released March 12th in 1982, directed by Charles Band, and it stars Robert Gandolfini, Demi Moore, Lucio Bersavini, Cherry Curry, and Vivian Blaine. And basically, it takes place in kind of a post-apocalyptic world where they control the United States, and a deadly flesh-eating virus gets released onto the population.
And keep in mind, that was Cherry Curry. Cherry Curry from The Runaways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, I will say one thing. One thing I learned from watching this movie.
Figure out what the fuck you want to do before you start making a movie.
Demi Moore's acting hasn't changed since 1982. It is exactly the same. Her range is in this film.
That's what it's been. Say, but yeah,
so it's either Demi Moore just can't act beyond what she gave in this, or she found what works and she stuck with it and realized she didn't need to change it because she can make movies based upon this range, and then she could just run with that. If that's what it is, cool. I mean, if you find what works and it makes you money, fantastic, solid. But pretty much no matter what role you put her in, like anything after this, from G.I. Jane, Ghost, whatever, Ghost was pretty much the exact same range, just with added tears. G.I. Jane was the exact same range, just with more yelling. So, and she got like super ripped in shape for it. So, reality, I mean, I was kind of shocked. I was kind of like, wow, She really, I mean, this is her first film. This was her first feature-length film. I was like, damn, it's pretty much Demi Moore. That's Demi Moore. She hasn't altered one bit. There's no, I haven't seen any kind of growth or evolution of Demi Moore since 1982. I was kind of depressed.
Demi Moore, as good as it gets.
Aaron says, I felt her acting in Striptease was stellar.
She was acting?
That was okay. So we laugh it up. We laugh it up that the film was not great. My biggest problem with the movie was I'll always dig a good monster flick. Just kind of like, hey, evil genetic experimentation monster, like this thing, developed in this dystopian world, escapes, and then the doctor that created it has to go and try and destroy it before it kills everyone. I get that. The monster movies are cool. The problem was that this movie was trying to do way too much. There was too much focus on shit that really had nothing to do with the monster in itself. The name of your movie is Parasite. It should be Parasite centric. You hired Stan Winston to do the creature effects on this. That's a Stan Winston monster you see in there. And I think there's a total of maybe like 15 minutes where there was actually a monster visible. Where they actually deal with the monster.
Right.
And I was kind of like, that was the giant issue with this one, is that you go into the movie expecting one thing and you got something completely different. They spent more time focusing on the agent for the merchants that was chasing the doctor. I got more about him than I did about the monster in and of itself. Other than that, it's just, this is deadly parasite that's genetically engineered and he created it and escaped. And I was like, okay, fantastic. But Zerkaz says the punks were the only redeeming characters. Agreed. They weren't. They're the only ones that really had an arc. Not even Demi Moore's character had an arc, but the punks did. They went from, hooligans, dystopian hooligans, to victims, to like antagonists, to victims, to all of a sudden they're the heroes. I was like, well, that was impressive.
Wait a second.
So like I said,
reformed.
The movie is attempted to do too much. It attempts to create a universe in which it's this dystopian version of America where pretty much the economy is falling apart. You notice the gas signs in it that were like $35 for a gallon of gas and shit like that. Then you bring in, everyone's driving these like falling apart, cobbled together cars, and then you have the merchant, the agent who comes in and he's driving. I think it looked like was that a Lotus? It looked like a Lotus to me.
It looked like a POS.
That black car, that sleek black car with the what are those doors? You're talking
about the suicide doors, right?
Where they rise up the wings. Okay, so this futuristic looking car. It was like it's not a futuristic car. That's just like a super expensive car. That's all it was, at that time. So you're trying to create this dystopian environment. Then you've got the merchants that they never really explain anything about, but you got this agent who's working for the merchants. Then you got this doctor who creates this life form. Gull wings. Thank you, Angel. I appreciate it. Gull wing doors. Then you've got the monster, and then the monster escapes because of the hooligans, the ruffian punks. And then there's so much going on. The stuff with the doctor, the stuff going on at the hotel, the stuff going on in the little cafe or little diner thing that the old black guy's running. The agent, the merchants, Demi Moore's character, what the hell is she doing out there? All of these things going on. Oh, thank you. Sir Cap says it was a Lamborghini.
Okay.
And so I'm kind of like, the movie didn't really know what it wanted to be. And that was the problem. It should have focused on one particular thing, namely the title of the movie, which is the fucking monster, but didn't do that.
Yeah, that's when you make your movie, you have to keep your point clear, and you can't. It felt like somebody had a bunch of good, let's not say good ideas, but someone had a bunch of ideas, and then kind of midway through production, they're kind of like, whoa, we throw this in there, we throw that in there, we throw this in there, we throw that in there. You throw in so much stuff that you get away from the overall like vision, and this is especially with like my experience of directing, where you're working with like producers and all this other kind of stuff. Keeping a clear vision of your film. And because people will interject stuff, and sometimes sometimes somebody will have a good idea that will influence your film. But as a director, you have to be able to tell: does this influence my film, or does this improve my vision, or does it detract from it? And if it's something that detracts from it, you start getting a hodgepodge of other people's ideas. Because whenever anybody reads a script, you're going to see it differently. So if you gave the same script to all three of us, we're all going to picture something different, despite being the exact same script. And that's true when you're dealing with any kind of crew, with your cinematographer, your producers, your editors, and stuff. And so a good director, you have to get them onto your page. So when they have an idea, it enhances your vision versus they're throwing ideas. And then if the director is really kind of weak, they may just go with it because actors will fight for more screen time. Oh, actors will love to come up with, well, if I add this line, we add this scene, we add this and that. So they get more screen time, but it detracts from vision. And let's say the editing, you need an editor who's like, listen, that's a great scene, but this isn't pushing the plot forward at all. This is a whole side thing that no one's going to care about. And so this is what happens. You get a weak director and a bunch of people end up influencing it in the wrong different ways. And you get this kind of,
You know what may factor into this is because this particular and what was odd is because at the time, because this was directed by Charles Band, and I wouldn't have expected him to have been influenced in this respect. But then again, this was kind of early on in his young filmmakers, when they're really starting to get budgets and starting to get productions that they can work on, I guess could become before Band became more established. Young directors can be influenced by, I guess, your producers or other voices because they don't trust themselves yet, or they haven't gained the confidence to trust that this is what I want to do. This is how I'm going to convey this. That there is a certain amount of there's a limited amount of I want to use the term, I guess, lateral movement as far as what the director's vision is and what everybody can add to that. So the director has to know where those borders are. Be like, this is the vision. This is creatively what we're doing. The only thing that should hamper this is, did the producer say we can't do it, or is somebody who's controlling the funding of this, or do we simply not have the budget to do it? Or is there some issue that's been brought up that is hampering this? There should be only logistics that get in the way. Other people think coming in saying, hey, I think you need to add this to your vision. Sure, there's some flexibility there, but the director's got to be confident in what they're trying to create. And I can see that if this was early enough on there, he may not have had that confidence and kind of gave into that. Yeah.
You got to wrap stuff up too. That was the whole thing. You're saying they're chasing the agent around this whole movie. That's like a side story that you could have wrapped up at some point, but it just never went anywhere. There was no depth to that story. And honestly, it was kind of boring. Like the movie was pretty, there was some intense scenes and stuff, but in between it was just kind of like, wow, this story's boring. I'm not following the story. And then it jumps back in and you're like, oh yeah, cool. Back to the Paris. Oh, nope, it's gone again. And now we're...
Sarcasm brings out is I truly believe it would have been better if it were not a 3D movie. Yeah, and true. I think probably the only reason they did 3D is because they realized that, production-wise, there's not a lot here. There's so much going on and so little time focused on what the goddamn name of the movie is about. It was like, why? Why would you even? Just you cannot make up for bad filmmaking by putting in something that's oh, it's exciting, it's 3D, in your face. That's not going to save it.
It's gimmicky.
It's gimmicky. I guess in 1982, I guess it was gimmicky enough to bring people in, but that just people go in and they recognize, oh, there's really not much going on here. I mean,
tell that to James Cameron.
It's like, what?
3D's gimmicky. Then fine, I'll invent new 3D.
New 3D, Cameron 3D. And that was the problem. The big issue on this is the film didn't know what it wanted to be. Either the director didn't know what kind of movie he wanted to make, or the script itself was nebulous enough that there were a lot of different ideas coming in. But that's the problem with it. We've talked about this in the past. Your film has got to know what it wants to be. Does this want to be a monster movie based upon the Parasite? Hell, it's the title of your fucking movie. Does it want to be a sci-fi dystopian adventure film? Does it want to be a thriller where the agent is chasing the doctor who's trying to save the world, and he wants the evil organism for, nefarious corporate, warfare purposes or whatever? All of these things are hinted at, and we get little bits and pieces of them. None of them add to the plot, especially when we were expecting and we are anchored to the idea of a monster movie. And then the monster comes out, kills a couple of people, and they eventually shut it down, and then credits.
And see, on top of that, that's where you have to manage the audience expectations, where you have a lot of films that become cult classics because they were mismarketed. So if you're coming in expecting, oh man, I'm going to expect a gory creature feature, and then all of a sudden you're not getting creature stuff at all, you're getting the agent running around, it automatically starts to disappoint people. And what ends up happening when you mismarket a film is the people who go see it don't get what they're expecting, so they don't like your film. And then the audience that may have actually liked your film don't go see it because they think it's something else.
Or
So
their
you
opinion
miss
gets
something.
overshadowed when it comes to criticism, and that's all people see is the negative because it was just essentially just chopped and screwed.
Exactly on it. So because the people who do see it, they review it badly. And so then say some of the people who may have actually enjoyed it, I'm not saying this one, just films in general, who may have actually enjoyed it will go look at the reviews and go, oh, I won't watch it anymore.
Right.
Sounds stupid.
Donnie does that, brings up worst thing about 3D movies is creating shooting scenes specifically for 3D. Yeah. That just doesn't work at all. And then Aaron brings up design by committee will kill a creation every time. Too many cooks in the kitchen. And, given as early on, there's a lot of firsts here. I can see why that would be problematic. It's like you got too many voices in your head. It winds up being death by 1,000 cuts. Or you cater to this as like, it's like, oh no, we want to do this. We want to do this. I want this particular thing. I will give this, as far as visual appeal, the monster itself looked pretty good. Stan Winston effects.
Oh, yeah,
I tell you, the monster
course.
looked okay when you were able to see it. It was effective. It was like, oh, it's like this giant man-eating fucking tadpole looking thing with lots of teeth. I was like, okay, cool. The monster looked all right. The kind of set area that they were working in, this very dystopian, I dug that. It was very Road Warrior feeling. I dug what they were trying to convey. I like the dilapidated. I love the overexposed, blasted out look of the entire movie. I thought it worked. Colors where they're just like everything looks like it's blasted out, and I dug that. It looked hot. It looked uncomfortable. It looked gross. Everyone would, it just looks dirty. And everyone just kind of like recuperating from the after effects of some great war. Very done to great effect in movies like Book of Eli. And I like what they accomplished there. And unfortunately, a bunch of little small good things all stuck together don't make for one big great good thing, especially when all of those things are completely different in their identity. You got to be able to focus on what your film is, knowing what your movie is, your movie's identity. I'm telling a monster movie. The focus should be on the monster itself, not a whole bunch of stuff that tertiary people might think are important. And that's where this thing kind of lost its appeal. And it was kind of like, I saw what could have been there on paper, on script. This thing might have worked really, really well, but may have. I haven't because sometimes you pick up the original script and you're like, whoa, this is not what made it to the page, what made it to the screen. I would like to be able to find that and be like, holy shit, why was this scene in there? Or why wasn't there? Or why didn't they do this? Unfortunately, that's the business sometimes.
It would be great. Yeah, that's what we have a saying in the business where you have your 3 scripts. You have the script you write, then you have the script that you end up shooting, then you have the script you end up editing at the end. And rarely are all 3 of them the same thing on it. And it is clear. This is where it sticks to clear with division. When I directed my first film that actually had an organization behind it and they put up money behind it. And I mean, it's just a short film about 5 years ago on it. And this was a lesson even myself I had to learn the hard way, because you get people kind of interjecting stuff here and there, and the vision ended up getting really blurred. Like I said, this was my first, and this is just a short film. It can be difficult, even more difficult than a feature. And it came out, and I'll tell you, the film's terrible. Like I said, 5 years ago, I'll tell you, the film is terrible. It screened one time, and then it's sitting on my hard drive somewhere here on it, and like that is it is terrible, but it was a great learning lesson. So when next projects, like when I did Black Clown last year, where they put up money once again, not same organization, different people, this time I picked and chose my battles.
Right.
And that project came out way better. I'm really hoping that I can get the okay to show either the trailer or a clip from it, or maybe even that whole episode is like 30 minutes at some point here on the show, because I think a lot of y'all really enjoy it. But picking, choosing your battles, knowing when to concede, because sometimes you can concede on something but still on your vision. But you can kind of make the producer go, "Oh, you know what? Yeah, you are right." And you're like, "Yeah, I'm still how to work that system."
We ran into that. We ran that the short film that I AD'd for you, Eugene. On that little one, there was a moment where I was kind of like, "No, I got to shut my mouth," because even as the AD, you still gotta know your place. And I was kind of like, and it was what was in my mind was a way just to shoot the sequence. Was like you had the camera straight on, and you've got he's where he's talking to her, and she's standing there, and then the entity was behind her, and then you had him like this was like moving the camera such a way so that it was kind of like that, and then the reveal was more like where it was hidden, and then all of a sudden the camera moved so that you could go, or so you get that effect, where like she looks static, but then the camera like kind of turns to the point where you get that reveal. It's like, oh, I stand behind her, and oh, that's freaky. And I was like, I think that would be really cool. I was like, wait, no, shut my mouth. No, it's going to work just fine. Don't need to. It was like, oh, yay, fun camera effects. It's not that simple. And people got to understand that, especially, like actors who don't have a lot of behind the camera experience. Just jump. I was like, hey, I've got this idea. And it's like, no, because setting up for stuff like that takes time. You look at it, a camera reset. You're looking at blocking. You have to ensure that you have the space to move. You can't just do shit like that on the fly. And sometimes when you put in, the director goes, oh, wow, that could be interesting. Yeah, let's try it. Nope, now you just wasted half an hour at minimum just to try and set up for this one thing when you don't even know if it's going to work. So that's why I was like, you remember that moment? Yeah, I was standing behind the camera and I was looking like this, and you were talking with, what's her name? Andrea. You're talking with Andrea. Yeah. And I was like, maybe if, and you're like, what? And I was like, no. Ignore me. No, nothing to say. Take it easy, Nerd Journal. That sounds like that's the perfect time. So, but yeah, this was a big. This whole film, the Parasite in itself, was just a big example as to when you are filmmaking, know what your movie is, know what your film's identity is, know what movie you're trying to make, and don't cow just because other people have things that may sound interesting or whatever. Just stick with what you know, stick with what the film's trying to be, and execute the creative vision as best you can.
Yeah, it's a balance of don't. We're not necessarily saying, hey, don't take suggestions from people, but listen to them, and then how does that convey against your own vision? Because sometimes somebody can come up with a better idea and it's like, actually, that portrays my vision better than my original idea, and then you can run with it, and that's okay. That happens all the time. But don't be afraid at the same time if it detracts from to say no.
Aaron says, yes, Mr. Norton. Very true. Excellent point, Aaron. Excellent point.
So, but actually, I think it's a great time to ask the audience, what is your favorite dystopian horror film?
Oh, dystopian horror film.
Dystopian horror film.
I'd have to say, as far as like a dystopian American America or wherever, just like a world that's like, I would I'd have to say my favorite would be horror film Stakeland, because Stakeland conveyed the fallout, like what would happen with a world that had fallen at the expense of some virus or whatever. It was the vampire virus that destroyed everything. It conveyed that extremely well. then the pockets of civilization, the cults that rise up in this, and just the communities are trying to survive, and of course the monsters in them themselves. I really, really dug that one. Stakeland pulled it off really, really well. Charlie Welch says Cloud Atlas.
Yeah.
Angel Rivera says Screamers was okay.
I think Screamers did pop in my mind.
Yeah. So Little Wolf brings up Undead. I thought Undead was pretty good too. And Sarcasm is A Boy and His Dog. It was my first. Very cool.
You should need to make sure you've got that punctuated correctly.
What do you mean? A Boy and His Dog?
It was my first.
Oh. Punctuation is everything. Plothole says Castaway. Jesus.
It's a psychological horror movie.
Well, definitely let us know in the comments below. Let us know in the comments below or down or at weekinhorror@gmail.com. What is your favorite dystopian horror? I think it's about that time. I think
what time, JL?
It's trivia time, baby. All right, for this week, I know this is what everybody is waiting for. They hear us talk about horror movies, and it's like, oh, get to the trivia question, so I can win swag, so I can win cool stuff. All right, so our trivia question today, we are giving away a limited edition number 4 T-shirt, official Weekend Horror T-shirt. We're giving away a limited edition number 4 T-shirt before they leave the store. They will be leaving the store here soon. So and then we will unveil our limited edition shirt number 5. Ooh, Roden LSM brings up Hardware. Excellent. Hardware was good. That was a good one. So bringing this up, so a Weekend Horror limited edition shirt number 4. So you will need to let us know what size you want and what color you want the shirt in. They are on the Weekend Horror store at Teespring. You can find that link in the description below. And let's just whoever's going to win this one. So let's get without further gilding the lily, with no more ado, the trivia question for tonight is: director Charles Band is best known as the creator of what 3-decade-long running horror series? Of course, you know the answer, Bloodhole. I'll say it again. Director Charles Band is best known as the creator of what 3-decade-long running horror series? And the first answer in the chat. No, the answer is not Bob Saget. Dingus. Plato's Little House on the Prairie. That's cute. Oh, I thought I had my volume turned down. There we go. So I've got the live chat up, and let's see who's got it first. Dan Hetfield. No, it is not Leprechaun. Sir Little Wolf.
There it is.
There it is. As soon as it pops up on the screen, because it's not there.
I never hopped up on mine yet.
Plot jails just as because I beat him in trivia again. Hardly, my good friend. Okay, so spelling aside, so Little Wolf is correct. It is the Puppet Master series. So I see that Charlie Welch was in there really quick with Puppet Master. Tony Regime, it was not Halloween. Aaron, it was not the Lawrence Welk show. Okay. Wait, hang on a sec. So Chris Durham said, I missed my answer. I didn't see your answer. Chris Durham, where was Chris Durham's?
I saw the wait.
He said, okay, Chris Durham's question answer was Bob Denver in Return to the Island, The Howling.
Oh, so close.
That was cute. That was
funny. The Muppets Take Manhattan.
Muppets Take Manhattan. No, Rono's name was not Friends, and it's not the Flintstones either. But yes, Sir Little Wolf knocked it out of the park with yes. It was the Puppet Master series. It's been running for over 30 years. And created by Charles Band's Full Moon Features. So congratulations to Sir Little Wolf. That is a Weekend Horror limited edition number 4 shirt. Sir Little Wolf. Congratulations. Let us know what the size shirt you need and the color that you want it in. If you need to double check, you can go onto the Teespring and check out what colors we have available, and then, of course, the size, and we will get that printed and shipped to you ASAP. Congratulations again.
Way to go.
Nice. Congratulations.
You got a shirt before I did. Damn.
You can always go on and get one.
I know. I definitely need to go order a bunch of stuff off of that before it leaves. And that will bring another episode of Week in Horror to a close. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we truly hope you guys had a good time, because we did. Join us next week when we look back at the iconic horror Evil Dead 2, the original viral terror of the crazies, deep sea science horror in Leviathan, and the excellent cannibal horror Ravenous. I can't wait to talk about Ravenous. We'd like to send a special shout out to all of our amazing patrons who continue to help make Week in Horror the incredible success it has become. Thank you guys so much, seriously, for everything that you do for us. We love doing this for you, so thank you. Be sure to stop by Joshua Olsen's store, www.badsamurai.store. He does all of the artwork for the show, and he's got a lot of his own designs that he showcases at that website. It's fantastic. Go check him out. For more horror fun, be sure to follow us on the socials where you can get our daily splatter right to your feeds, and at Digital Darkness, our new gaming channel hosted by Alien X Gaming. Please comment, like, subscribe, and smash that bell as if you're someone's #1 fan for all the latest updates from the show. Those interactions really help us appease the insatiable hunger of our dark god, algorithm.
Oh, just taking it out of us.
Fuck that guy.
Fuck that
guy. There should be sections in fucking Catholic history of algorithm.
I see some dystopian horror future that we're all living in, where we're all worshiping the algorithm.
You're just buildings blown up, rubble just everywhere, and algorithms just spray painted on the side of buildings. Yeah, it's definitely where it's headed.
Have you seen that one meme where it has a robot pointing to the screen and you're like showing you the meme you posted that's getting you executed?
Yeah. Yeah, that sounds about right. And lastly, if you love what we do here and you would like to and are able to support our production, you can through our Patreon. We have tiers as low as $1 a month. That's cheaper than a Walmart Uwe bowl film.
In trouble with that line?
God, that's cheaper than a Walmart bin Uwe bowl film. Fuck, I can't even say his name right. He sucks so bad. Higher tiers get early and special After Dark access, bonus content, monthly horror movies, and can even join us as special judges on our Bloodbath debates, which has been fantastic. Thank you guys so much for participating in those. It's been a blast. But if Patreon is not your modus operandi, you can always support us directly through our PayPal. Links to everything, including our Discord community, where you can find film recommendations, trailers, trivia games, horror watch parties, and even interact directly with us, are in the description. As always, sharing the show with the fans in your local horror community is the absolute best way to help us further our goals of global horror domination. Thank you all so much for being the greatest audience a podcast could have, and we truly do mean that. Thank you so much. I'm Alex.
And I'm Eugene.
I'm JL.
We'll see you next week. And as always, stay scared.